Welcome into Locked On Knicks. The Summer Knicks are all done playing. Now it's time to decide their fates, or at least give our impression of what their fates will be. Is Tyler Kolek going to be the backup point guard for the Knicks? And what's going to happen with Pacome Dadiet? And will Rokas Jokubaitis find his way to the Knicks? We got all kinds of stuff coming up right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode, because even though it's now about to be the doldrums of the offseason, for the foreseeable future, we'll still be here for you guys 5 days a week. I'm Alex Wolfe. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find strict.land, and he's Gavin Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster, reunited, and it feels so good after another busy summer week that saw us apart for a little while. And Gavin, the Summer Knicks are all done. And some kind of big news came out today. Ian Begley, or today and yesterday, I guess there's been discourse about it for the last couple of days. Ian Begley initially had a report that said campaign was primed to potentially take the backup point guard role, and then issued sort of a correction the next day and said, actually, I'm hearing that Tyler Kolek maybe has won that job at this point, which then begs the question of what's up with Deuce McBride. And we were talking about it a little bit pre-show. My reading of that news is sort of that Kolek has won the quote pure point guard minutes, behind Jalen Brunson. So if they want like a pure point guard, then sure. I think they'll still probably have Deuce run the show a bit, and for those, 12 minutes that Brunson is out every game, maybe give Deuce a chance to, do some stuff with the ball in his hands. But I guess we'll see how that goes. But I think Kolek is the logical first place to go as far as predicting where all the Summer Knicks are going to end up this year and what the next year holds for them. I think he's obviously the guy with the brightest future, especially in the eyes of the organization, off this summer league team.
Yeah, this got my set my antenna up, got my radar going. I'm not sure, but this caught my attention would be the simplest way to say this from Ian Begley, because we went over it about 2 weeks ago when DJ Zulu was on. There are not minutes available in the Knicks rotation right now. I'll throw it on screen for those of you watching on YouTube. Good incentive for those of you listening to check us out on YouTube, at least sometimes when we have some graphics. But here's my day one rotation, and this is including OG Anunoby having 10 minutes. This is with the presumption that they re-sign Precious Achiuwa. If not, you could throw Jericho Sims in there. There right now I have Deuce McBride, who was a really good player on a Knicks team that came within a game and about 5 injuries of making the conference finals. I have him at 12 minutes a game. If you are playing Tyler Kolek at all, you might as well trade Deuce McBride, because at that point, you're just not really using the guy. Of course, there will be injuries that will create some openings. I think, Alex, when we first talked about this, you sort of were thinking of Kolek, kind of how Deuce was used his rookie year. Like, if Brunson's hurt, if the starting point guard is hurt, then he gets to play backup point guard minutes. That is still my impression. But where the radar goes up is this makes me think Ian knows something about a trade. And this is maybe his sneaky little way of telling us that there was a move to come for the Knicks. And maybe that would include Deuce McBride going out for a center, whether that's Walker Kessler, whether that is someone else. Maybe we'll talk about that on another episode. But even before we get into Kolek's play, and I am super, super excited about his play, his skill set, I hope no one mistakes any of what I'm saying now as an indictment on Kolek. I just cannot imagine, if a move is not made, with the exception of the Knicks signing Precious Achiuwa, that he is going to be part of the day one rotation for this team.
Yeah, I think it would just require Tibbs branching out to a 10-man rotation again, which I don't think is super likely. Because then maybe you can find
But like,
I
all
don't
right,
know.
just let me throw this at you. Like, I'll throw out the
Yeah.
graph again. Like, where are you taking away minutes? Like, who right now? Mikhail's playing 33, Dante's at 28, Hart's at 28, OG's at 32. Like, these guys, as is, are playing less minutes than they should. So that's kind of what I'm getting. Like, it's
Yeah.
already really difficult without a 10th guy in there.
It would probably be minutes away from Dante and Hart, I guess, and that's again only if you're like so concerned with Deuce as a primary ball handler off the bench that is an issue for you.
Yeah.
Um, and like I think that ultimately, you're right. Like there's only going to be maybe 12 minutes behind Jalen Brunson any given day at the point guard spot. So then are you taking a few minutes away from Dante DiVincenzo in that case? I would say that's probably where it comes from. It would just be Dante and Hart and less playing OG at different positions, less like going small or whatever, and stuff like that, and kind of just sticking to a more rigid approach of 1-for-1 swaps, more or less, which it was a hallmark of early Knicks Tibbs, and luckily has not been a hallmark of recent Tibbs, who's been, he's shortened that rotation, and then that allowed him to kind of, you know, get a little more creative with who's out there because there always kind of has to be one starter out there, which I think was a huge positive for the Knicks over the last couple seasons. So hopefully he doesn't abandon that mindset. But if they just really want to get Kolek out there and really have that more traditional ball handler out there, maybe he gets like 6-7 minutes a game out there with Deuce McBride, and then Dante DiVincenzo at the 3, Josh Hart at the 4, and Precious or whoever they get for center out there backing up Mitch, and maybe that's the lineup you go with. I don't think it's super likely because I just think I think the Knicks looked like they had the depth to potentially go out to 10 this past season too at the beginning of the year, and they didn't do it because Tibbs was pretty locked in on the strategy that worked so well for him before. So I don't know why they would necessarily do that, but I could see where maybe that's where the reporting's going. But I agree with you. I think there's a decent chance that maybe this means that something's up with Deuce, or that maybe there's some scenario where the Knicks are trying to work like a sign and trade of Precious plus Deuce for someone else. Maybe there was a rumor from CP from Knicks Fan TV that the Knicks maybe were still interested in Karl Anthony Towns. So maybe there's something in the works for that. I don't know. I guess, I just said a couple minutes ago when we opened the show that we're hitting the doldrums a little bit, but maybe it's not. Maybe we're about to have a huge monumental thing again, and then that's going to open up playing time for Kolek. Either way, though, like if we want to just get into his actual play, I could see where he's earned it over this summer league. Like, I think there are some concerns about him as a scoring point guard, but certainly if you put him out there and you can find him minutes where he has 2 elite shooters in Deuce McBride and Dante DiVincenzo next to him, a Josh Hart who's great at cutting, who can shoot on his own sometimes as well, who I think has proven himself 100 times over with this team as far as just being a spark plug that you want out there that's going to run in transition and be getting out there trying to get layups and everything else. Like, I think Kolek would have a field day with those 3 guys, plus let's just say Precious Achiuwa, out there to catch alley-oops or whatever, or just get transition opportunities. Like, it would be a pretty dangerous lineup. So I mean, if you can find a way to make it work, I think he's proved himself. And as much as if I had my full choice of everyone from Summer League and who I would want to slot into this rotation, I would probably say Rokas because I think he fits a little better with the cast overall. And I could see a world where he could play with Jalen Brunson for a minute or 2 or something like that, which I can't see with Kolek. But as a pure backup to Jalen Brunson, different type of player, obviously, that's going to look more to get everybody else involved rather than being the hub of the offense. But he's definitely proved that he can run and organize a team on the floor as good as any like rookie point guard the Knicks have brought in forever.
Yeah, I'm super excited about him. I cannot see a way he plays. Like, I just don't think you can take any minutes away from Dante DiVincenzo. Like, if he goes under 28, if I'm his agent, I'm like, all right, trade this dude because he's one of the 10 best 3-point shooters in the league. And on 90% of other teams, he'd be playing over 30 minutes. But Kolek is like you can't say he's proven himself, right? Because like at an NBA level, because he just hasn't played NBA competition yet. And we have seen over the years, shout out to Kevin Knox, it does not always translate. That being said, as much as you can prove yourself to be NBA ready in summer league, I think Kolek, at least offensively, did that in the best way possible. Like I talked a lot, the one episode I got to talk about summer league, about just like his like pick and roll savvy and just how advanced his reads are. What stood out to me, like watching the final few games, like I can run through it. His pace manipulation is just flat out, like I wouldn't even say at an NBA level. I would say it's like at a high NBA level. And he just has this ability, despite not being a monster athlete, to, I guess the best way to say this would be like dictate the dance. Like a defender is always responding. A defender is never really initiating action with him. Like you're not going to shepherd him to where you want him to go. He is like, again, despite not having extraordinary athletic traits, he like seems to always get to his spot. He seems to like have a pass for every situation, whether it's like an underhanded bouncer with backspin on the run in transition, like cross court, no look. Like he never looks at the guy he's passing to until the second he's ready to give up the ball. He makes all five guys on the floor a threat. Like he had this one play where he's running a pick and roll with I'm going to butcher his name, as I've said in a little while, with Skapintsev. And the whole time, like the Kings are just so spooked with what he's done that entire game that they commit 3 defenders to guarding a pick and roll, and he just plays it out. Once he does it, as long as he can, like whips like just like a no look hook pass back to the right wing to Dwayne Washington III. And to your point, I think all that stuff plays in the NBA. I think it's going to be better with Dante DiVincenzo as a shooter around him. I think it's going to be better with Josh Hart replacing Pacome Dadiet as the guy who gets to the basket. Like I see some Jason Williams in his game. I see some homeless man's Steve Nash in his game. Like there is just a lot of great stuff there offensively. And I think if you play him with another shot creator, like ideally Julius Randle getting some bench minutes, or maybe even Mikal Bridges getting some bench minutes with the bench, that's overdue. He will kill you on spot up threes. Again, it just sort of comes down to opportunity, but I think he can come in offensively, be a great fit. Defensively, Alex, I have some real questions there. Maybe we can get into that in just a sec here on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we got to let you know about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, Gavin, we're back in. Keep talking through Tyler Kolek, and you mentioned the defense being a area of concern. I'm sort of there with you. I do see, if we want to talk about lofty comparisons, I mean, not that this guy's like rep is on defense, but certainly makes it work. I see a little bit of Jalen Brunson in the way that he plays defense. I think that man to man, he's going to have some matchups that would wreck him. But I think that he is savvy enough in the passing lanes. You know, I think that he walked into a lot of steals just by being, you know, anticipatory and knowing what the other team was thinking. Probably because it's obvious he sees the game at a high level as far as, you know, what he's able, like seeing it like a chessboard, you know, that he's able to put together in his head. And so I think that's valuable for guys that are undersized like that. I did see some of that to his game where I was a little less worried, because I'm like, you know, he might get torched by, I don't know, let's just throw out like De'Aaron Fox or Tyrese Maxey or someone like that, you know, someone that would give Brunson fits too. But he'll hopefully make up for it a few plays a game, you know, by just playing a passing lane well, generating 2 points for you that way. You know, being able, with how versatile this team is defensively, being able to just be kind of planted on whoever the weakest shooter is on the other team and just kind of hold his own and focus strictly on just keeping them away from the hoop long enough for help to come over. I think there's some possibilities for him. But I don't think we're going to have to worry about that too much because he'll mostly just be against bench units anyway, if he is getting playing time. So, I think that a lot of what he's going to be tasked with is mostly just the offensive stuff and then just be like, keep your head above water on defense. But I am with you. Like it's kind of hard to justify when you're looking at like Deuce McBride, who can admirably handle the ball amongst a bunch of guys that can also admirably handle the ball, like Josh Hart or like Dante DiVincenzo. Like they can sort of share the ball handling responsibilities in that bench unit as it's constructed. It's a little hard to then look and be like, well, they just like need a pure point guard so bad that you can put Tyler Kolek out there for that, even with the sacrifices that comes with that on defense. When if you keep it to a 9-man rotation, you could be like, well, but then you could have like Mikal Bridges out there instead, which would be better, or OG Anunoby or Julius Randle, or any one of the like superstars that the Knicks have in their starting lineup, you could have out there instead with that bench unit. It makes it a little tougher of a pill to swallow to make concessions for something like defense with Kolek in that case.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the type of player he is just almost exactly what the Knicks needed. Like if they weren't going to be able to find a great center in this draft, if they weren't going to be able to find a star wing, and we could talk about if we think Pacome Dadiet has any chance of becoming that down the road, like just someone who's ready to run an offense, keep the trains moving on time. Like I was asking our buddy Dan Olinger about that in terms of campaign, like and we were kind of like like Cam's like he does a little bit of that. That's not totally his game. Like that's Kolek's game. Like he is an exact fit for what they need at the position. It's just right now Deuce McBride, even if he's not a point guard, is just too darn good to be out of the rotation, to not be on the floor over a guy who just hasn't shown in the NBA yet. But there's a world where there's an injury and like Deuce is out for like 10 games and Kolek comes in and just sets the world on fire. And then maybe you're coming to the trade deadline and saying, hey, now we're going to trade Deuce McBride for an upgraded backup center. And that happens even later on in the year. I would have my concerns as I hinted at defensively, like not so much in the regular season, to the point, like it's just not going to be destructive enough to tank you in 10 minutes. In the playoffs, it could be destructive enough to tank you in 10 minutes. And where I really worry with Kolek is like he is maybe not quite as quick as Brunson, but he's not super far off. What he doesn't have that Brunson has is like he's not built like a tank, and he is not the best charge taker on planet Earth, which is how Brunson survives and like is sometimes even like a slight positive on defense. The right night, the right matchup. Kolek is going to have to get really good at that skill. He's going to have to bulk up. His screen navigation, I think, is hit or miss. The really frustrating part with him is sometimes he could stick with guys perfectly, but he's so short with such short arms that they just kind of go up over him. Like even someone like Marcus Sasser, who's not like a monster athlete, not a huge guard, was able to do that against him. So that has me a little bit worried. I think he's going to, like, especially in a couple of years, give you enough offensively that it just doesn't matter. For this season, that's where I'd be a little hesitant to rely on him, but he's a basketball genius. His court mapping is so far beyond. I just saw today, like that 360 pass that he had to the corner. I am just really, really, really excited to watch him play. Someone who I don't think is going to play this year, but I'm excited to see down the road, Pacome Dadiet. Alex, I think we would both agree that, or I'm skipping ahead. Let's talk Rokas Jokubaitis before we get to him. Do you think he actually comes over and makes the Knicks this season, or to our point, like is this just not the time or place for Rokas?
Maybe I'm projecting and being hopeful. But I mean, I don't know how the Knicks can look at what they just saw out of him and not be like, we need to find a way to get this guy on our team this year. I was talking about it briefly, but I'll kind of just introduce this theory. I do think that there's a decent chance that the Knicks are maybe trying to leave their 15th full roster spot empty going into the season and preserve that $5 million taxpayer mid-level exception to try to facilitate something, sign someone. Maybe it's around the trade deadline or buyout season, if there's early buyouts or something, maybe just to keep that sort of in their back pocket. And so they might not want to occupy that last, roster spot. Granted, maybe they also have a deal potentially lined up where they're going to do a 2-for-1, a Precious and Deuce for someone or something like that. So who knows how that ends up working out. I think no matter what, though, like they have 2 roster spots left. You can bank one of them as a center, whether it's Precious, whether it's someone else. Now, whether they have to make a consolidation trade to make that happen is a different story. But even with that theory and everything, I just don't know how you're not like, let's get this guy on basically the same deal we put Kolek on. They neither might play that much this year, but Rokas, I just feel like we saw so much, like in terms of how he can run an offense, when he was tasked with doing that, how he was able to play off of Kolek when Kolek was the point guard, and he was still able to, get the, 3-point opportunities and, just like those mid-range shots are just absolutely automatic for him. And the defense was way better than I expected. And, you want to talk about a guy who does a lot of good stuff off the ball on defense, like just his passing lane playing, his, getting after guys. One of my favorite plays of Summer League was still just his sneaky steal of, I forget who even had the ball, but I think it was in the Kings game, where the guy's backing down and Rokas sees the opportunity, jumps in there, gets his hand in there, and then just runs full court for a dunk. That was one of my favorite Summer League highlights. Like just so savvy, something not every player is always heads up enough to look for, especially in Summer League where everyone's just trying to keep track of their matchup. It was just, I liked everything about what I saw from him. Just the timing on the passing, the shooting, just everything looks great. I don't know how you look at him and say, and hear him saying loudly, like, I want to come to the NBA this year. And your conclusion is anything other than like, well, I guess we got to make it happen this year. Because if he and his agent get frustrated and then it's like, well, we're not going to sign an offer with any other team this year to force your hand. So either trade us this season, to somewhere, trade the draft rights somewhere else, or sign us. It's going to then be like, well, do you then trade his draft rights for like some heavily protected second round pick and live to regret it later? I think that would be the case. I think he's definitely an NBA player. I think the potential is there. I would, if I'm the Knicks, I do anything I can to try to make sure he comes over, maybe try to talk him into a 2-way deal. And that's maybe best case scenario if you can sort of lowball him in that way. But I think he's good enough where I would give him a full NBA contract and try to lock him up for like 4 years, just like you did with Kolek. Have him under an affordable contract that you can, maybe you got to include him in a trade or something, or maybe the idea is just that he's the guy that steps in after you trade someone. But either way, like I think getting him is borderline a must this offseason for me.
Yeah, I can. You know what? I think I can only see it if Deuce is dealt, and I will tell everyone why in just a sec on Locked On Knicks. But first, I want to tell you guys about our good friends over at FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. Never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer by getting football season started a little early. Alex, it always sneaks up on me. The NFL preseason starts in just 2 weeks. Before a team looks really good and changes the odds, I'm telling you to put odds on the Texans at plus 1,500. CJ Stroud is the next great quarterback in the National Football League. They're loaded up at the skill positions. Will Anderson is likely to emerge as one of the best pass rushers in football this year. I really, really like that team. If you want to join me again, head over to FanDuel.com, FanDuel official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right. So Rokas, I hate this, Alex. You put me in a position to be the party pooper, the Debbie Downer, right when I come back from vacation. It's not very sporting of you. I love Rokas. He is a lot of fun. His pull-up game is just nasty. It is so smooth. I think it's going in every single time. No one in Summer League could really do a good job of guarding it. I would love to see how he looked on this team, how he fit in with these guys. I wish we could play all of them. I wish we could pay all of them. I think bringing in Campaign rules out that happening unless Deuce is traded, because if not, you have just 5 guys who like, I know Deuce is not a point guard. I know Jalen is like not the most traditional point guard. you would have 5 guys on the roster who realistically are only going to be playing at point guard when the top guy is the best player on your team. And in the playoffs, he's probably going to be playing like 42 minutes a game. So I just can't see 4 other guys, again, who would only play at that position, barring injuries. Maybe Deuce could play somewhere else. Maybe Rokas could play somewhere else. With no injuries, it wouldn't really happen. So again, this sucks. I love him. I don't want the Knicks to move on from him. I just want to see what it looks like. I think we've both been asking for that for years. And that is where the campaign signing sort of surprised me, because I'd honestly rather just see what Rokas could do, but that's not the reality we're living in right now.
Yeah, and it is what it is. I can understand it from both sides of the coin too. You don't have all unproven NBA players, as your break in case of emergency option. It is good to have extra NBA level depth there. But yeah, I wish they would bring him over too. I mean, he made a sobering case for why there's a decent chance he doesn't come over. I think they should, but that's neither here nor there. My opinion doesn't matter. But let's give another opinion of mine anyway. So Pacome Dadiet, I think this is a pretty open shut case. Honestly, Gavin, I don't think we have to belabor it too much. The stats were not great. The Summer League was occasionally ugly and yet occasionally beautiful. I think that he really showed a lot of promise in how he moves, how he approaches the game. Clearly, he just needs to get used to the speed of the NBA game, to the NBA 3-point line, basically to everything that comes with coming from being an 18, 19-year-old, coming from FIBA competition to the US to play in the NBA. It's just a totally different game. It's approached differently by the players on the teams. The coaching is different. The roles are different. Everything is different over here. And so my hope is that he spends a ton of time in Westchester. I just think, in my opinion, this year, very slim path to getting any actual minutes with the Knicks. There would have to be lots of injuries, and I mean lots of injuries, for him to start getting minutes, because we've seen the Tibbs, if he doesn't fully trust a player, is not going to give you even 5 minutes of time on the court. If he thinks they could potentially lose his team the game, like, he would sooner just be like, Josh Hart, extra minutes, Dante DiVincenzo, extra minutes, if like OG Anunoby gets hurt or something, which is a very easy band-aid to slap on that situation. So I think Pacome just needs as many minutes as possible. Get him in Westchester, get him, 35 minutes a game, let him get up shots, let him make mistakes. That's my plan for him this year. I don't think it needs to be much more than that.
Yeah, no disagreement from me. He is big. He's coordinated. He is a super smart player. His touch is good, if not great. Like, I think there's something there. Whether it turns into anything more than just like some loose attributes that I can throw out on a podcast, I think we're gonna know 2 or 3 years down the road. He is not ready to play for some of the worst teams in the NBA. Like, maybe if he was on like the Pistons at the end of the year, he'd be playing 15 minutes a game. He's certainly not ready to play for a bona fide championship contender. It's Alex. We can celebrate, because the New York Knicks are, which means someone who maybe the Knicks, when we first started this podcast, were bad enough that he actually would have gotten on the floor. Thankfully, they're not anymore. I am super excited to see what he is down the road. The last guy we're going to bring up, and again, I resent that I'm the one saying it because I forgot how to say his name, but Dmitro Skapentsev, someone I really liked throughout Summer League. Another big dude who I could describe as coordinated. He is very patient around the rim. He has good touch. He has like some jump hooks, like kind of an old school big, but also, as we saw, he can pop out. Like, I was against the Nets. He can pop out and hit a three. He hit Dadiet at one point on a backdoor cut for a dunk. I don't think he's Isaiah Hardenstein, but he's already more of a passer than Mitchell Robinson will ever be. Is there a world where like the Knicks keep pressures Achua and they have an injury? They have 2 injuries. Jericho Sims can't make it some night. Is there a world where Skapentsev could be like a break in case of double emergency big, or is this just a case of a guy having a nice summer league who we will never think of again?
Yeah, I don't know. If it were up to me, I think he's a 2-way contract candidate. And unfortunately, it's a little hard to figure out how to make that work, because there's only so many 2-way deals. There's conflicting reports out there on if Jacob Toppin had a second-year 2-way option or not. That said, I think if the Knicks felt strongly about someone, they would not think anything of just like even waiting until the fully guaranteed date for Toppin just to make sure he gets all of his money, because those salary slots don't matter in terms of the grand your hard cap and whatever. So those are just essentially off the books. So, I would love to give him one of those two-way deals. I don't know if I love his game enough yet based off one summer league to say that I think he's worth an NBA contract. But I also think there's a non-zero chance that, like, if you sign him into a two-way deal, he might be able to find some backup minutes on this team, like, because they're looking for like that next big thing in terms of a backup center. And I know that he's like basically the same age as Isaiah Hartenstein. He's like 26 years old. So he's old for like a basically rookie. And his 2 years in Westchester, he played for Westchester the last 2 years. Not pretty. Don't look up the stats. It will not inspire confidence. He shot like 50%. The defensive numbers are not great. Like none of it is great. So I don't know if I feel super strongly about, just based off this summer league performance that he's for sure like turned some corner or something. But if he could somewhat replicate what he did during this summer league and come off the bench, like maybe there is a few minutes for him with the big Knicks this year at some point. So I would love if they could find a two-way deal. I guess I'll just say, I don't know if you have any more thoughts on any of the other players, but I'll just briefly say, like, Hook Porty obviously already has that two-way deal locked down. So I think that's for sure. They're not going to do anything with that. So 1 out of the 3 spots is definitely taken. I think there's a really good chance we didn't see him during summer league, but I think Kevin McCullough Jr. takes that second two-way spot, because the Knicks kind of have leverage in that situation to say, well, you didn't play summer league, so didn't prove you need a full contract. So we'd love to set you up with a two-way deal first. You're a sub 50 pick in the draft also, so you really have zero leverage there at that point. So I think that he probably ends up spending a lot of time in Westchester because the Knicks just have too many wings for him to possibly find playing time. And probably puts up some pretty solid numbers for the Westchester Knicks this year, and maybe starts making his case for being a rotation player in the years to come if the Knicks ever have to make, hard financial decisions or anything. Jacob Toppin, I don't think I would bring back on a two-way deal, and maybe that means that he leaves for like Indiana or something. Thought he had a pretty good summer league. I think he has potential to be like a 3-point shooter, not so much a 3 and D, but a 3 and kind of D and lots of bounce, sort of like his brother. So I mean, it would be a shame to let him go because I think there is some promise there, but he's also in his, like, I think he's 23 now. I think he just turned 23. So he's not exactly a spring chicken anymore either. And I would rather give it to someone like Skapintsev, or of course, if Rokas is down to take that deal, that's your 3 right there. Is Hook Porty, McCullough, and Rokas. No questions asked. Sign Skapintsev just to the G League team and go from there. And then I'll just throw my last, the end of bench darlings from the summer league. Damian Baugh hopefully ends up on the Westchester Knicks. I think there's a chance he maybe showed some team enough to give him a two-way contract, though, and I hope so because I like this game a lot. I just don't think there's room for him on this team. Semkello Sele, I totally fell for in that last game. His story is really cool. I told it in the last episode, but he came from the NBA Africa League, or the Basketball Africa League they call it, but it's like the NBA sponsored league in Africa that they've set up. And he was a first teamer there last year. He seems super honored to even get called for the summer league. So imagine how he'd feel to play up near the Knicks practice facility for the whole year. But he showed some promise too. I think he's a good cutter. He's got a beefy NBA body, and he seems to have some ups. So it would be fun to have on that team. Justin Lewis, I thought, was sort of a sleeper. Again, I think maybe a two-way prospect for some other team. I just don't know that he would end up with the Knicks because they have too many contracts to figure out right now, including McCullough. And then Devin Kennedy, I hope, plays for the Westchester Knicks this year. Dwayne Washington Jr., I'm fully over the Dwayne Washington Jr. experience. I don't even want to see him on the Westchester Knicks this year, but he'll probably end up there. So that's my final predictions. That's everybody of note that was on the team. I think there was like 2 other names. Obadiah Noel, I guess, probably a future Westchester Knick. But other than that, those are all the guys we actually saw play during this summer league. So that ends my thoughts on all that.
All right, two quick things to end. My bold prediction that's not actually a bold, that bold of a prediction. I think Kevin McCullough Jr. Finishes second out of all these guys on minutes on the actual team this year. I think he's the guy who gets some garbage time minutes over someone like Pacome after he gets fully healthy and proves himself. And Westchester a little bit just behind Tyler Kolek. My other fun story is I did one of Devin Kennedy's games when he was in college. It was a Princeton Iona, and at the time it was like by far the biggest game I'd done, just because it was like two pretty decent, like one Ivy League, one mid-major power. And I think because I was nervous, I kept like doing the same call over and over again. He just kept making threes. I just kept going, Kennedy triple. And like, it's not something I look back on fondly. My friends will like just scream that at me like randomly all the time. It's now like 6 years later. They still do that. So shout out Devin Kennedy. Hopefully he's a cup of tea. Really, really good 3-point shooter. And hopefully making some for the Knicks one day when they're up by 60 in the NBA Finals. But until that day, he is Alex Wolfe. I'm Gavin Schall. Plenty of more content to come, including probably a mailbag this week. So whether it's on Twitter or on YouTube, send us some questions. Until then, we'll talk to you very, very soon on Locked On Knicks.